Hello, I'm Terry Pratchett. I used to be just Terry Pratchett, but now I'm also terrypratchett.co.uk. I've never worked harder on a book. I really don't know where Nation came from. I woke up one morning with an image in my mind of a young man standing on a beach holding a spear, and he was incredibly angry. And this was about, I don't know, five years ago at least. And I wondered why. And over the next few weeks, while I was working on other things, bits of the story kept coming in. And there had been a terrible disaster. A tidal wave, as we used to call them in the old days, had hit his island, which was going to be somewhere in the Pacific, and everyone he knew had been killed, and for some reason I didn't know at that time, he hadn't been on the island, and he had been the only one saved in order to come back to bury the bodies of everyone or most of the people he had ever known, which is and then I thought, and this is a children's book. This has to be a children's book. It's a children's book starting with a disaster. And then there is this ship that has been washed up by the tidal wave that kills all these people. And there is one survivor, and she is a Victorian girl of, fairly high-born rank. And a lot of the book is about the dynamic between this Victorian girl who thinks that she is naked if she's wearing fewer than 4 garments underneath her dress, and a boy who sometimes wears a loincloth if he remembers to put it on. I wasn't thinking of writing it at that time because I was working on another book, and then the big Asian tsunami hit, and I thought, no, this is not going to be a good time to do it. Regrettably, the 21st century is not the only century to have been beset by disaster. And of course I had in mind Krakatoa, which was certainly a disaster in its own right. And in fact, during Krakatoa, among many other kind of fairly strange things, a ship was driven, I think, about 5 kilometers inland by the force of the wave, and that had been one of the triggers in my mind. In fact, when I thought about it, there were lots of things floating around in whatever passes for a filing cabinet in my brain, which somehow had all gravitated together to become Nation without me actually being very conscious of it. And so a couple of years went by, and then the pressure to write it was too great. It was actually filling my head. I had to get this damn book down on the page. And really that was it. I spoke to both my editors and said, I don't want to write according to the schedule I now have. Nation has got to be written. Otherwise it's going to curdle my brain in some kind of way. It was very, very hard because Discworld has a toolbox. I know how to write a Discworld novel. I know the strengths, the weaknesses, what I can do, what I can bring in. I've got backgrounds and histories and an awful lot of experience. And I know how to write a Johnny Maxwell novel and like that. And Nation is set in this world, except it isn't this world. It's slightly shifted a bit. It's the get out of jail free parallel universe that enabled me to make some little changes. And I had to deal with the facts of this world and the history of this world, but fortunately I could change that a little bit as well. And I had to find a suitable location for the Nation, and I had an awful lot of fun with some of the things in this world, like our habit during the 17th, 18th and 19th century of navigating the Southern Ocean by the calendar. So you had Christmas Island and Easter Island and the Whitsundays, and so it was the work of a moment to add the Bank Holiday Monday Islands and and the Mothering Sundays, which I absolutely love because because it sounds exactly right. And of course there is Mrs. Ethel J. Bundy's Birthday Island, which actually turns up in the book. And I made other interesting changes to Victorian history and a few other things to make the book more exciting and to get the plot right. And there it was. It did unroll in front of me even then, but it had lots and lots of surprises. I vaguely knew how it was going to end, which is pretty much the case with all my books when I begin them. But as it began racing towards the end, all kinds of other things turned up and they absolutely fell into place beautifully. And there was whatever causes serendipity was working flat out for me, because there was one point where I really needed to know very quickly some very definite information about how bullets act when they're fired into water, because I had a belief that they probably went quite slowly after a while. And the following day I had dinner with a man that did a lot of the pyrotechnics and gunfire and similar explosive technology at Pinewood Studios, who volunteered to go and fire lots of guns into water and see what happened. And it's absolutely true. In the book, Mal can turn round as he's swimming underwater in a lagoon with a man firing bullets at him, and he sees the bullets coming towards him so slowly, cavitating so that they leave little bubbles in the air, that he can pick the bullet out of the water. And that was just sent from above, or possibly from below, just at the time I needed it for the book. It's a grueling book. It's amazing what you can do for kids, and you have to get things right, and I hope I've got things right. I look back on it with great affection, and every time I look at it I think I could improve it. The book tended to escape rather than get published, but I hope everybody enjoys it.